What is up, gamers? In this video, I'll be going over a budget deck for every single nation in Standard. And before we get started, this video is sponsored by 50 cards. Wait, don't skip ahead. Hold up. This isn't just me saying that you can use discount code FLAIR on his website to get a 5% discount. You can do that, but this is an announcement for a big project we started working on, which is a budget deck section on his website. So most of the standard budget decks I have done on this channel and all of the ones in this video, you will be able to directly purchase on his website for about $30 each. Now this is going on also during a big 4-year anniversary sale as well. So during this time period, my discount code FLAIR will actually be a 10% discount instead of the usual 5%. So the original 5 starter decks that I did will be on there, the BOV deck will be on there, and then the 6 decks I talk about in this video will also be on there. And they will stick around even after the sale ends. So I hope you guys really enjoy this, and there will be more decks in the future. Just right now we have 13 different options, which is insane. It's crazy. So yeah, anyways, back to the video. For Dragon Empire, we are playing Eugene. So Eugene has the skills Act once per turn, that's 2 rear guards, retire an opponent's rear guard and he gets plus 10,000 for the turn. And Act once per turn, when the opponent's rear guard was retired this turn, you can Soul Blast 5 cards, look at the same number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of empty rear guards the opponent has, and then you can either call them or put them into Soul. Eugene is a really good budget option, and all of his support almost never gets expensive as well. So if you want to play Dragon Empire on a budget consistently, then Eugene is a great option for that. His ride line gives you ways to generate soul. So Nigel can soul charge whenever you ride Randor, and then whenever you ride Eugene over Randor, you draw a card and put a card from your drop into soul. So from your ride line plus the 2 extra soul you get from them, you'll have 5 soul on your grade 3 turn, so you can activate Eugene's second skill. We also utilize the order Best Harvest. So for the turn, you give your Vanguard the skill that when your opponent's rear guard is retired during your main phase, you draw a card. So if the opponent has a really large field, then you want to be able to consistently retire those rear guards. And then even though you're playing cards from your hand, you can still have a decent sized hand because Best Harvest will keep drawing you cards. And then we want units that can either retire or get bonuses if the opponent has empty rearguard circles. So our grade 2 lineup has Dustin and Jiba Brachio. Dustin is on place. You put a card from your hand to soul, draw a card, retire an opponent's grade 2 or higher rearguard. And on attack, Soul Blast 1, he gets plus 2,000 for each open rearguard the opponent has. So Dustin fuels your soul and also lets you dig deeper into your deck, and also becomes a 20k beater if the opponent doesn't have a field. And then Jiba Brachio, act rearguard if your Vanguard's Eugene. You can Soul Blast 1, rest him, and retire an opponent's rearguard. And at the beginning of your battle phase, if your opponent has 1 or less rearguards, Jiba Brachio can stand and get plus 5,000 until end of turn. So Jiba Brachio becomes a 15k beater, so if there's an 8k behind him, then he swings for 23, which is a pretty solid number. He can also be a good rest target for Eugene, since it will stand anyway, and it just gives you really good spot removal for the deck. And then one of our big payoffs is with Oswald. So at the end of the battle, that it boosts a Eugene Vanguard. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and they have no rear guards, you counterblast 1, discard 1, stand your Vanguard, and increase or decrease its crit and drive to 1. So this gives Eugene 2 Vanguard attacks. And stacking crits on Eugene on the first check isn't always ideal because Oswald will bring the crit back down to 1. But Eugene is usually a very big attack on his own, so having a way to restand them and have a 4th attack naturally in the deck makes it a lot better. Next up is Dark States, and it's Barrow Magnus. So Barrow Magnus is your main grade 3 with the skills on attack, you can blast 1. Depending on the number of cards in your soul, you get these effects. So if you have 5 or more, you draw a card. 10 or more, he gets plus 10k in a crit for the battle. And 15 or more, both you and your opponent put all of your rear guards into soul, and then you get to call 2 out and give them plus 10k until end of turn. Barrow Magnus naturally just wants to get to 15 soul as fast as possible, so we play cards can soul charge really easily. So in our ride line, we have Deep Sonica, which which soul charges one, and Electro Spartan, which puts a card from hand into soul, and you draw and you soul charge one. So we will have 6 cards in our soul as soon as we hit grade 3. And then we want to try to hit the 15 afterwards. So we play Bear Magnus's Order, which soul charges 3 and gives your Vanguard the ability to give your front row plus 5k for the turn. There's Flaming Pony, where if it's in your soul, you can bind it and soul charge 2. There's Curtis, which on play if your Vanguard's Bear Magnus, you soul charge 2. And there's also Selfish Engraver, which on hit soul charges a card. So we have a ton of ways to soul charge, and we want our big payoff of our 15 soul for Barrow as quickly as possible. Ways we can abuse that 15 soul more is with cards like Deep Sonica, is a 18k beater during your turn. And then there's also Lilac Lasher, which gets plus 2000 for every card in your soul. So if you have the 15 in soul, then he becomes a 32k attacker by himself and just hits like a truck. And there's also Kihagra, which can let you have a card from your soul and put it into your hand, and also can give you a little bit extra power. Next is Keter Sanctuary, and it's Graham Grace. So Graham Grace has the skills that when you Persona Ride, it also increases the power of your back row units. And act once per turn, Cam Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw 1, choose a card from your hand and call it to your back row center rear guard. That unit can attack from back row and it gets plus 10,000. And at the end of the battle, your back row center rear guard attacked, you can put in the soul and draw a card. So Graham Grace on turn 4 hits really hard because whenever you Persona Ride, you will have 60k free power compared to other decks normally being only 30k power. And then you're also able to have 4 attacks while also being able to keep your soul supply running through Graham Grace putting the thing that's attacking into soul. So Graham Grace just by himself makes the deck function super well. He's his own engine. And our ride line is Wingull Brave with Marin with Blaster Dark. So whenever you ride Blaster Dark over Marin, you call the Wingull Brave out as standing, and then you can use Blaster Dark to retire it in something your opponent controls to gain a drive for the turn. Or you can not do Blaster Dark skill and you just get a free 6k booster that stays on the field for a long time. For other good cards, there's Languid the Chat, which is a 15k beater that can also boost on grade 2. Because Graham Grace can put whatever you call from the back row center into soul, then Languid the Chat can gain that power on turn 3 instead of having to wait for you to rewrite another grade 3. There's also Izarod Angel, which lets you build a board a little bit quicker. There's Turnar, which can give you a way to clear your field to countercharge as well. And then we also have Sign Bluegar, which is a 13k beater or booster. So the deck just has a lot of ways to go through its deck and draw more cards and be able to build a board out of nothing. For Brandgate, it is Archite. So your main grade 3 has the skills when your rearguard monster and its card name is placed, you put a card with the same card name from your order zone to the bottom of the deck, and that unit gets plus 10k. And on attack, if your order zone has a research card, you counterblast 1 and activate all of the effects accordingly. So if you have 3 or more research cards, you choose one of your rearguards with monster and its card name and put it into your order zone. And then the second effect is look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 unit card with monster and its card name from among them, and call it to rearguard and shuffle your deck. So Archite is really good at being able to gain a ton of power to be super aggressive with. And you also have a very easy way to get 4 attacks for just a counterblast every turn. And because of the set order you play with it, it's super good at being able to find its pieces and be able to consistently have a board you can work with. So the research order is whenever it's put into order zone, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, choose 2 monsters, put one of them into your hand and the other into your drop zone. And then while it's in order zone, you can rest it and put a monster from your drop zone into your order zone. So we play a bunch of monsters to be able to help with this. And our ride line is just like the Ava ride line, where whenever you ride them, you get to search your deck for a research order and add it to your hand. So for the monsters we're playing, our grade 3 one is Goka Terra. So when placed on rearguard, you counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards with grade less than or equal to the number of research cards in your order zone and retire it. So by the time you have this in play, you'll guarantee have at least 2. So you can retire a grade 2, and then if you have the third one, then you can retire basically anything in the game. And on attack, if your order zone has 3 or more researches, then he gets plus 5k, so he becomes an 18k beater. And combined with Arcite giving it plus 10k, it becomes a 28k beater. There's also Elahira Side, which is just a 15k beater. So combined with Arcite skill, it can be 25, and if you have an 8k booster behind it, swings for 33, which is a really big number. There's also Cyclogade. So when placed on rearguard, you put a monster from your drop into your order zone. And on Guardian Circle, if your order zone has 2 or more researches, then it gets 5k shield. So this gives the deck a little bit extra beefiness and being able to live opponents' attacks easier. And then for our grade 1s, we use Mega Grago as a way to countercharge and have on-hit pressure with these really big attacks. And Adaptin, which is a 10k booster. So if you have it behind your Vanguard or Gokatera, then you swing for a really nice number that forces the opponent to guard a lot more. Next is Stoicheia, and it's Maelstrom. So your main grade 3 is Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom, and act once per turn, discard a card, choose a card with only Aqua Force in its clan or a Tear Dragon from your soul, and call it to rearguard. And it gets the skill that on attack, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, and it's the first battle of this turn, you Counterblast 1 and stand it. And then at the end of the turn, you put that rearguard back into soul. And also on attack, whenever it attacks a Vanguard, if it's the 4th battle of this turn or more, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and retire it. So Maelstrom is basically like Flagberg, where you try to create a bunch of attacks, and you're able to generate advantage through punishing the opponent super hard. And this deck is really strong whenever you hit Persona Ride turn, because then you get that Persona Ride effect multiple times and get more value out of each 10k compared to most other decks. So for our ride line, we run Tier Knight Theo, adds a Blue Storm Armada from our deck to our hand. And then we have Algos, searches for an Aqua Force or a Tear Dragon from the top 7 whenever you ride over it. So our main order is Judgment Maelstrom. Whenever it's put into Order Zone, you activate all of the effects below. You choose up to 1 unit with only Aqua Force or a Tear Dragon from your drop and call it to rearguard. And you give a rearguard plus 5k until end of turn for each other Judgment Maelstrom you have in your Order Zone. It basically acts like a Soul and Body condensation for Maelstrom, but the longer the game goes, the more effective this becomes. So we want to be able to multi-attack a lot, so we have the skill Maelstrom gives to give out Tear Dragon the stand ability, which as Tear Dragon is Shoreline Raised Dragon. On attack, if it's the 4th battle of this turn or more, and if you have a Blue Storm Armada in your Order Zone, he gets plus 10k until end of battle, and at the end of battle, you put it into your soul. So it becomes a 23k beater, but will also restand off of Maelstrom effect. We have Tidal Assault, which at the end of battle it attacks. You can Counterblast 1 and stand Tidal Assault. And we have Wheel Assault. At the end of battle it boosts. If your Vanguard's a Maelstrom, you can Soul Blast 1 and swap 2 of your rearguard's positions. So the deck just has a lot of ways to get power and be able to get multi-attacks. So on your turn 4, you're able to push the opponent really hard and try to close out the game. And the last deck on here is for Leocal Monasterio, and it's Clarissa. Be aware that there is a new Clarissa coming out in Festival Collection, which comes out in July. But getting these Earns Correct cards earlier, generally a good idea, so then you don't have to worry about potential buyouts in the future. But if there's any other decks from set 1 that you are interested in playing, I would recommend getting them now, instead of waiting till cards start getting revealed. For Clarissa though, on ride, you search for and add it to your hand. And whenever Clarissa hits, you draw a card and choose one of your Earns Correct rearguards and give it plus 5k until end of turn. So the order, you need to have 5 or more Earns Correct with different names on your field. And until end of turn, all of them get plus 5k power. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Clarissa gets the skill that it can attack 3 different circles on the board. So this is good because Clarissa's on-hit effect is not once per turn. So if Clarissa hits multiple things, you'll draw multiple cards and get 5k power multiple times. So we make this deck consistent because the grade 1 in Clarissa is able to search for an Earns Correct from your deck. And then the grade 2 Clarissa also searches for an Earns Correct from top 7. And then all your Earns Correct units are also very solid. So there's Evelyn, where it can search for an Earns Correct from your deck and call it. There's Catalin, which can multi-attack from Clarissa hitting. There's Leona, which can save your units from being retired and put them back into your hand. And then there's also Trilby, which gains power every time your Vanguard hits. So all the Earns Correct cards do work very well in tandem together. And for our non-Earns Correct cards, we only have the ability to put in 1 Regina. So at the end of the battle, it boosts and earns correct. If you have a Vanguard Clarissa in its card name, you Soul Blast 1, retire it, and add a grade 3 or less earns correct card from your deck to your hand. So you're able to find either Persona Rides or any of the earns correct pieces you're missing, or if you're playing against, let's say, Chronojet, and they remove your earns correct cards back to the bottom of the deck, then Regina is able to grab them back to be able to use again. And then the last card is Evelina, and it's just a 15k shield if your Vanguard is an earns correct. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, if you want any of these decks that are currently on here, then in the description there's a link to it. Use code FLAIR for 10%, you heard it at the start. And yeah, thank you all for watching and bye. See ya. Have a good day. Deuces. This is crazy. I just shot up in subs. The big creators noticed me, shouted me out. Now I'm sponsored, and now I'm shelling out for a sponsor with a really cool project that I'm really excited about working on in the future. Yeah, bye.